And how long are we going to keep this a secret?
Give me a few more days.
The crystal wine glasses caught the gallery's track lighting like tiny prisons of light, each one reflecting Noah Grant's face in fractured pieces. He stood near the contemporary sculpture section, watching his wife Melanie glide between potential buyers with the practiced grace of someone who'd spent 15 years curating other people's dreams into profitable realities. The Rothstein piece speaks to the duality of modern relationships, Melanie was explaining to a silver-haired collector, her voice carrying that honeyed tone she reserved for closing deals. Surface perfection masking underlying decay. Noah's jaw tightened. Even her art commentary felt like a personal attack these days. Simon Harold materialized beside him, 2 glasses of Bordeaux in hand. Brooding again, partner. Simon's smile was all white teeth and calculated charm. Your wife's putting on quite the show tonight. She always does. Noah accepted the wine, but didn't drink. Something in Simon's tone felt off, like a blueprint with measurements that didn't quite add up. Speaking of shows, Simon's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, we should discuss the Henderson merger. Timing's everything with these corporate acquisitions. Noah nodded absently, his attention caught by Melanie's laugh. Too bright, too familiar. She was talking to the collector, but her eyes kept drifting to Simon. A secret language passed between them, coded in glances and half smiles. Daddy? 14-year-old Danny appeared at his elbow, phone in hand as always. Mom wants to know if you're driving home together tonight. Why wouldn't we? The question came out sharper than intended. Danny shrugged, already losing interest. She just asked. She drifted away toward the refreshment table, leaving Noah with a gnawing sensation in his gut. Simon excused himself and moved toward Melanie. Noah watched them converge near the back wall, where a massive abstract painting dominated the space, all violent reds and desperate blacks. He couldn't hear their conversation from this distance, but their body language screamed closeness. Melanie's hand brushed Simon's arm. Simon leaned in close enough to whisper against her ear. Noah moved closer, using a sculpture as cover. The gallery's ambient noise, clinking glasses, polite laughter, the soft shuffle of expensive shoes on polished concrete provided perfect camouflage. After the merger clears, Melanie was saying, her voice barely audible, the timing has to be perfect. You're sure he won't suspect? Simon's reply was careful, measured. Noah? Melanie's laugh was cold. He's so buried in his blueprints and building codes he wouldn't notice if I burned the house down around him. And Danny? Danny will adapt. Children always do. Melanie's voice hardened. She's already starting to question why her father works so much, why he's never really present. It won't take much to shift her perspective completely. Noah's hand tightened on his wineglass until he thought it might shatter. The forensic accountants won't find anything? Simon pressed. Everything's been moved. The condo deed, the offshore accounts, all untraceable back to us. By the time the divorce papers are filed, half of Grant and Harold will already be mine through the shell companies. And Noah? We'll never see it coming. Melanie's smile was visible in profile, carnivory and satisfied. Poor Noah, so brilliant with buildings, so clueless about people. The conversation shifted to safer territory, art prices and gallery politics, but Noah had heard enough. He backed away slowly, his mind racing through implications like an architect calculating load-bearing requirements. Every casual comment Melanie had made about money, every suggestion that he was working too hard, every time she'd encouraged him to trust Simon with more of the business decisions, it all clicked into place with sickening clarity. Back at the sculpture, Noah pulled out his phone with hands that trembled slightly. He activated the voice memo app and moved back toward their conversation, managing to capture Simon, saying, once the psychiatric evaluation goes through, we'll have grounds for everything. Melanie's response was lost in the crowd noise, but Noah had heard enough. He stopped recording and immediately emailed the file to his personal account, then sent a copy to his cloud storage. Evidence, foundation, the beginning of his own blueprint. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and automatic responses to gallery patrons. Noah played the role of successful architect and devoted husband while his world crumbled like a building with compromised structural integrity. In the car driving home, Melanie chattered about sales figures and upcoming exhibitions. Danny sat in the back seat, earbuds in, lost in her own teenage universe. Noah drove in silence, processing, planning. You're quiet tonight, Melanie observed as they pulled into their driveway. The house, 5,000 square feet of modernist perfection that Noah had designed himself, loomed before them like a beautiful lie. "Just tired," he replied. Later, after Melanie had gone to bed and Danny was safely in her room, Noah sat in his home office and stared at his phone. The voice memo was still there, damning and undeniable. He scrolled through his contacts until he found Rebecca Miles, family attorney, old friend from college, and one of the few people who'd never been charmed by Simon's veneer. His fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long moment before he typed, "What happens if a spouse sabotages a business asset during divorce?" The reply came back within minutes. "Call me, now." Noah's office building stood like a monument to his success, 30 floors of steel and glass reaching toward the Seattle sky. But as he sat at his desk at 6 a.m., 3 cups of coffee already cooling beside his keyboard, the view felt more like a prison than a throne room. Rebecca's voice echoed in his memory from their late-night phone call. "If what you suspect is true, you need documentation, financial records, communications, anything that proves intent to defraud." The Grant and Herald Company server spread across 3 monitors before him like a 3-dimensional puzzle. Noah had built this system himself back when he still trusted his business partner enough to share admin privileges. Now that trust felt like architectural negligence, a load-bearing wall removed without consideration for structural consequences. Invoice after invoice scrolled past his eyes. Henderson Construction had been billing them for materials that seemed inflated. Steel beams priced 30% above market rate. Concrete deliveries to projects that hadn't broken ground yet. Noah's photographic memory for numbers, the same skill that made him a legendary architect, now revealed the pattern of systematic theft. Every inflated invoice bore 2 signatures, Simon Herald and, surprisingly, Melanie Grant. As the company's financial consultant, a position Noah had created for her 3 years ago during a romantic gesture that now felt like professional self-destruction, she had co-signing authority on major expenditures. His phone buzzed. A text from Simon. "Late night? Saw the lights on in your office from the street?" Noah looked up sharply. Simon's BMW was indeed parked across the street, engine running. How long had he been watching? "Early morning," Noah texted back. "Reviewing the Henderson contracts?" The response was immediate. "Anything I should know about?" "Just being thorough." Noah kept his tone neutral while screenshotting every suspicious invoice. Simon's car pulled away, but the message was clear. Noah was being monitored. By noon, Noah had compiled a devastating portfolio of evidence. The pattern was elegant in its simplicity. Simon would approve inflated contracts, Melanie would co-sign them, and the excess payments would flow to a series of shell companies. The companies' names were creative: Apex Design Solutions, Metropolitan Build Corp., Pacific Northwest Development, but their registration addresses all traced back to a single law firm downtown. Noah pulled up the property records database. The search for Melanie's name yielded expected results: their family home, her gallery's office space, and one surprise entry. A condominium in Belltown, purchased 8 months ago for $750,000. Cash transaction, Melanie Grant, sole owner. His hand shook as he pulled up the property photos. It was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern fixtures, expensive furniture already in place. A love nest waiting for its new occupants. "Dad!" Danny's voice startled him. She stood in his office doorway, school backpack slung over one shoulder. "Mom sent me to get you for lunch." "What time is it?" "Almost 2. You missed 3 calls from Mom." Danny stepped closer, studying his face. "Are you okay? You look weird. Just work stress." Noah minimized the browser windows. "Your mom's waiting?" "At the restaurant downstairs. She seemed kind of annoyed that you weren't answering." Danny hesitated. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you and Mom having problems?" The question hit him like a structural failure. Sudden, devastating, impossible to ignore. "Why would you ask that?" "She's been different lately. Happier, I guess, but not because of us. And she keeps having these phone calls where she goes into her room and closes the door." Danny's teenage perceptiveness was another trait she'd inherited from him, the ability to see patterns others missed. "Plus, she asked me weird questions yesterday." "What kind of questions?" "About whether I thought you were sad a lot, whether I felt safe at home, whether I ever worried about your temper." Danny's voice dropped. "I told her you never even raise your voice, but she kept pushing, like she wanted me to say something different." Noah's blood chilled. The psychiatric evaluation Simon had mentioned. They were building a case, using his own daughter as ammunition. "Danny, listen to me very carefully. If anyone asks you questions about our family, teachers, counselors, anyone, you don't have to answer them. Tell them you want to talk to me first. You're scaring me, Dad. I'm trying to protect you. He stood and pulled her into a hug, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo and teenage anxiety. I love you more than anything in this world. Remember that, no matter what happens. Lunch was a minefield. Melanie had chosen the restaurant in Noah's building, a power move that forced him onto familiar territory while she controlled the conversation. Simon joined them, as if by coincidence, sliding into the booth beside Melanie with practiced ease. You look exhausted, Melanie observed, her voice carrying just enough concern to sound genuine to nearby diners. When's the last time you slept through the night? I sleep fine. Do you? Simon leaned forward. Because you've seemed pretty stressed lately. The Henderson Project has everyone on edge. Danny looked between the adults, her sandwich untouched. The undercurrents were too strong for her to miss, but too complex for her to decode. Speaking of stress, Melanie continued, I've been thinking we should take that vacation we talked about. Maybe get away for a few weeks, clear our heads. I can't leave right now. Too many active projects. See, that's exactly what I mean. Melanie's hand found his across the table, a gesture that once would have comforted him but now felt like manipulation. You're so consumed by work that you can't even prioritize your family's well-being. Simon nodded sympathetically. Maybe some professional help? There are excellent therapists who specialize in executive stress management. The trap was closing around him with architectural precision. Every word was being crafted to build a narrative of instability, overwork, and neglect. Noah could see the blueprint of his own destruction spreading across the table like poison blueprints. I'll think about it, he said finally. That evening, Noah sent Danny to her room early and confronted the house's security system. He'd designed it himself 3 years ago. Cameras, motion sensors, and recording capabilities that could be accessed remotely. It had been a gift for Melanie, a way to help her feel safe when he traveled for work. Now, it would become his surveillance network. The installation took most of the night. Micro cameras in the living room, kitchen, and Melanie's office. Audio pickups in the spaces where she took her private phone calls. Motion sensors that would alert his phone whenever someone entered or left the house. By dawn, Noah Grant had transformed his dream home into a fortress of evidence gathering. The architect was about to become a detective in his own life. His phone buzzed with the first alert at 10:47 a.m. Motion in Melanie's office while she was supposedly at the gallery. The hidden camera showed her on a video call, the laptop screen reflecting in the office mirror behind her. Noah enhanced the audio and felt his last remaining illusions crumble. The evaluation is scheduled for next week, Melanie was saying. Dr. Morrison is discreet and thorough. Her report will give us everything we need for the custody hearing. The voice from the laptop was Simon's. And the business assets? Already transferred. By the time Noah realizes what's happening, Grant and Harold will effectively be Harold and Associates. Melanie's smile was triumphant. He built us an empire, Simon. All we had to do was steal the blueprints. The envelope arrived at 9:15 a.m. on a Tuesday that started like any other day and ended like the last day of Noah's old life. Christine from HR delivered it personally, her face a mask of professional sympathy that immediately set off alarm bells in Noah's architect-trained mind. He'd learned to read the spaces between people's words the same way he read the spaces between building supports. I'm sorry, Noah, but this is a mandatory referral, Christine explained, as he stared at the psychiatric evaluation request. The company's insurance requires it when employees show signs of severe stress or behavioral changes. Noah's voice came out steady despite the earthquake happening inside his chest. What behavioral changes? There have been concerns raised about your work hours, your interaction with colleagues, some erratic decision-making patterns. Christine wouldn't meet his eyes. The evaluation is just a precaution. Dr. Morrison is very discreet. Dr. Morrison. The same name Melanie had mentioned in her recorded conversation. The trap was tightening with mechanical precision. Who filed the complaint? I can't disclose that information, but it came from someone who cares about your well-being. After Christine left, Noah sat in his office chair and felt something fundamental shift inside him, like a building settling into new ground, finding its balance after an earthquake. The naive version of himself, the man who'd trusted his wife and business partner with his life's work, was officially dead. What remained was someone harder, more calculating, someone who understood that architecture wasn't just about building structures, it was about understanding how to make them fall. His phone rang, Melanie's name on the screen. "How was your morning, honey?" Her voice carried false brightness, like sunlight through glass that was about to shatter. "Productive." Noah kept his tone neutral. "How's the gallery?" "Oh, the usual chaos. Listen, I'll be late tonight. Emergency meeting with a potential investor." The lie rolled off her tongue with practiced ease. "Don't wait up." After hanging up, Noah checked his phone's surveillance app, motion detected in their bedroom at 2:30 p.m., while Melanie was supposedly at the gallery meeting with investors. The hidden camera showed his wife and Simon Harold in his marital bed, their bodies moving with the familiarity of long practice. Noah watched for exactly 30 seconds before saving the video file to his encrypted cloud storage. Evidence. Foundation stones for the structure he was about to build. The next morning brought a second earthquake. Noah was reviewing project files when his assistant knocked and entered with a man in an expensive suit carrying a leather brieffolio. "Mr. Grant, I'm David Chen from Berkshire Legal Services. I have some documents for you." The divorce papers were comprehensive and devastating. Melanie was filing for legal separation, citing emotional misuse, erratic behavior, and her fear for her safety and their daughter's well-being. She was requesting full custody of Danny, temporary support payments, and, the masterstroke, an immediate restraining order that would ban Noah from their home and limit his contact with his daughter to supervised visits. "Sir?" David Chen was looking at him with professional concern. "Do you understand the documents I've just served?" "Perfectly." Noah's voice sounded strange to his own ears, like an echo in an empty building. "When does the restraining order take effect?" "Immediately. You'll need to vacate the family residence within the hour and maintain at least 500 feet of distance from your wife at all times." An hour later, Noah stood in the parking lot of his own home, looking up at the modernist masterpiece he'd designed as a symbol of his success. Every line and angle reflected his aesthetic vision, his dreams of creating the perfect space for his perfect family. Now it was a fortress with him on the outside. His phone buzzed with a text from Danny. "Dad, what's happening? Mom says you can't come home. She's crying, but she also seems relieved." Noah typed and deleted a dozen responses before settling on. "Everything will be okay. I love you." But even as he sent it, he knew it was a lie. Nothing would be okay again. The old Noah, the trusting fool who'd built an empire only to hand the keys to his enemies, was gone forever. What was being born in his place was something much more dangerous. 3 weeks after being exiled from his own life, Noah stood in the empty shell of what would become the Meridian Heights residential complex and realized he was looking at a perfect metaphor for his current existence. Raw concrete and exposed steel, all the beautiful finishing work stripped away to reveal the brutal architecture underneath. The construction site had been abandoned for 6 months, another casualty of the economic downturn that was affecting everyone except, apparently, his wife and former business partner. Simon had somehow managed to secure 3 new major contracts in the past month, using connections and resources that had previously belonged to Grant and Harold equally. Now it was just Harold and Associates. Noah's name had been scrubbed from the letterhead like a mistake corrected by an eraser. His reflection stared back at him from a puddle of rainwater on the concrete floor. He barely recognized the man looking back, 20 pounds lighter, wearing jeans and a leather jacket instead of his usual architectural uniform of tailored suits and Italian shoes. His beard had grown out, and there was something carnivory in his eyes that hadn't been there a month ago. "You look like hell," said a voice from behind him. Noah turned to see Manny Costello picking his way through the construction debris. Manny had been one of Noah's first employees back when Grant and Harold was just an ambitious startup. Now he ran his own private investigation firm, specializing in corporate espionage and infidelity cases, skills that had made him very successful and very cynical. "You look like money," Noah replied, noting Manny's expensive watch and custom suit. "Business is good?" "Business is excellent. People never stop lying to each other, and they never stop wanting to know who's lying to them." Manny studied Noah with professional interest. "You sounded different on the phone. Darker." "I am different." Good. The old Noah was too trusting for what needs to happen next. Manny pulled out a tablet and began swiping through files. "I've got everything you asked for. Financial records, travel patterns, communication intercepts. Your wife and Simon aren't as careful as they think they are." The evidence was comprehensive and damning. Melanie and Simon had been planning Noah's destruction for over a year, moving money through shell companies, building a case for his mental instability, and positioning themselves to take control of everything he'd built. The psychiatric evaluation was just the final nail in a coffin they'd been constructing since their affair began. "There's more," Manny continued. "The condo in Belltown? It's not just registered to Melanie. The deed lists Danny as a partial owner, probably to shield the asset from divorce proceedings. But here's the interesting part. Danny had no idea. Someone forged her signature on the paperwork. That's fraud. Multiple felonies, actually. Document forgery, identity theft, financial fraud involving a minor." Manny's smile was sharp. "But we need to be smart about how we use this information." Over the next 2 hours, Manny laid out the full scope of the conspiracy. Simon had been systematically undermining Noah's relationships with clients, spreading rumors about erratic behavior and missed deadlines. Melanie had been gathering evidence of Noah's supposed instability, including staged photos of holes in walls that she punched herself and recordings of arguments that she deliberately provoked. "They've been playing chess while you were playing checkers," Manny concluded. "But now we know all their moves." Noah absorbed the information with the same methodical precision he brought to analyzing architectural plans. Every detail was cataloged, every weakness identified, every structural flaw noted for future exploitation. "I need to learn some new skills," Noah said finally. "What kind of skills? The kind that weren't covered in architecture school?" That evening, Noah enrolled in a Krav Maga class in a gym on the south side of town, far from his usual haunts. The instructor was an ex-military woman named Sarah, who asked no questions and accepted cash payments. For the first time in months, Noah felt something other than helpless rage. He felt focused, purposeful, dangerous. After class, he drove to an electronics store and purchased surveillance equipment using cash and a fake name. Then he visited a library and spent 3 hours researching Washington state's surveillance laws, divorce statutes, and the legal definition of fraud. Knowledge was architecture. The more he learned, the stronger the foundation he could build for their destruction. 2 days later, Noah put his new knowledge to work. He waited in the parking garage beneath Simon's apartment building, crouched between 2 SUVs with the patience of a hunter. At 11:47 p.m., Simon's BMW descended the ramp, and Noah stepped into the headlight beam like a ghost materializing from concrete and shadow. Simon slammed on the brakes, his face pale behind the windshield. He rolled down the window with shaking hands. "Jesus Christ, Noah, you scared the hell out of me. What are you doing here?" "We need to talk." Noah's voice was calm, conversational, which somehow made it more threatening than shouting would have been. "Look, man, I know you're upset, but this isn't the way to— Get out of the car, Simon." "I'm not getting out of the car. You're not supposed to be within 500 feet of me, according to the restraining order." "The restraining order applies to Melanie. You're not mentioned." Noah stepped closer to the driver's side window. "Get out of the car or I'll drag you out." Something in Noah's tone convinced Simon that resistance was futile. He opened the door and climbed out, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender that wasn't entirely theatrical. "I know everything," Noah said simply. "The shell companies, the forged documents, the psychiatric evaluation setup. I know about the condo deed with Danny's forged signature. I know about the Henderson merger manipulation. I know about all of it." Simon's face cycled through denial, anger, and finally resignation. "So what do you want? Money? A bigger cut of the company?" The question revealed everything Noah needed to know about his former partner's character. Simon genuinely believed that everyone was as corrupt as he was, that every relationship was just a transaction waiting for the right price. "I want you to understand something very important," Noah replied. "I spent 15 years building an empire, and you two spent 1 year stealing it from me. But here's what you didn't realize. I'm not just an architect. I'm an engineer. I know how to make things fall down." The fight lasted less than 30 seconds. Simon threw the first punch, a wild haymaker that Noah easily avoided thanks to his Krav Maga training. Noah's response was surgical, a palm strike to Simon's solar plexus that dropped him to his knees, followed by a knee to the face that sent him sprawling across the concrete. "This is just the beginning," Noah said as Simon writhed on the ground, red liquid streaming from his nose. "You stole my life, so I'm going to destroy yours. Systematically, professionally, the way a real architect would do it." As Noah walked away, he palmed the GPS tracker he'd attached to Simon's car during the confrontation. From now on, he would know exactly where his enemies were at all times. His phone rang as he reached his rental car, Manny's name on the screen. "I've got news," Manny said. "Good news and bad news. Bad news first. Danny received a court subpoena today. Someone wants her to testify about the condo ownership. And the good news? She called you instead of her mother. Kid's smarter than they gave her credit for." The law offices of Berkshire and Associates occupied 3 floors of downtown Seattle's most prestigious building, all glass and chrome and the kind of understated luxury that whispered rather than shouted about money and power. Noah sat in Rebecca Miles's corner office, looking out at Elliott Bay while she reviewed the evidence files he'd compiled over the past month. "This is either the most comprehensive case of marital fraud I've ever seen, or you've completely lost your mind and fabricated everything," Rebecca said finally, setting down the thick manila folder. "Given that I've known you for 20 years and watched you build a multi-million-dollar company through sheer competence and integrity, I'm inclined to believe the former. It's all real. Audio recordings, financial documents, photographic evidence. They handed me a blueprint for my own destruction. I just had to read it." Rebecca leaned back in her chair, studying Noah with the same intensity she brought to cross-examining hostile witnesses. "You look different, harder. I feel different, like I've been sleepwalking for 15 years and finally woke up. Good, because what we're about to do will require that version of you. The old Noah was too nice for this kind of warfare." Rebecca opened her laptop and began typing. "We're going to file countersuits that will make their heads spin. Fraud, conspiracy, identity theft, racketeering under the RICO statute." RICO? Isn't that for organized crime? What do you call a systematic conspiracy to defraud a business partner through falsified documents and shell companies? Rebecca's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "We're also going to request an emergency injunction freezing all assets pending the outcome of the fraud investigation." Over the next 2 hours, they crafted a legal strategy that was as carefully engineered as any building Noah had ever designed. Every attack had a backup plan. Every weakness in the enemy's position was identified and targeted for maximum damage. "There's one more thing," Noah said as they were finishing. "I want full custody of Danny." "Based on what grounds?" "Child endangerment. They forged her signature on legal documents, which makes her a sufferer of identity theft. They used her as a pawn in their conspiracy without her knowledge or consent." Noah's voice hardened. "And I have recordings of Melanie discussing how to manipulate Danny's testimony against me." "That's enough for a custody modification, but you need to be prepared for them to fight dirty. They'll use the restraining order, the psychiatric evaluation request. Let them. I have better ammunition now." The first shot was fired that afternoon. Rebecca's legal team descended on Grant and Harold's offices with court orders demanding the immediate production of financial records, communications, and computer files. Simon's panicked phone calls to Melanie were intercepted by the surveillance equipment Noah had installed in their vehicles, providing real-time intelligence about their response strategy. The second shot came through Manny's network of contacts in the financial industry. Within 48 hours, 3 major banks had frozen accounts connected to the shell companies, and the Henderson Construction merger, the deal that was supposed to make Simon rich, was suspended pending a fraud investigation. The third shot was more subtle, but potentially more devastating. Noah had spent 15 years building relationships with Seattle's architectural and construction communities. Now he called in every favor, spread carefully selected pieces of information, and watched as Simon's reputation crumbled like a building with compromised foundations. "The beautiful thing about revenge," Noah told Manny over drinks at a bar in Pioneer Square, "is that it doesn't have to be illegal if you're smart about it. Everything I'm doing to them is perfectly legal. I'm just using the same tools they used against me. And if they try to retaliate, with what? Their credibility is shot, their assets are frozen, and Simon's facing potential criminal charges." Noah raised his glass in a mock toast. "You can't fight a war when your supply lines have been cut." The fourth shot was the most personal. Using his surveillance network, Noah had documented every meeting between Melanie and Simon, every lie they told, every move they made. When Melanie tried to paint herself as the sufferer of an abusive marriage, Noah released carefully edited audio recordings that revealed her true nature. Calculating, manipulative, and utterly without remorse. The public humiliation was swift and devastating. Melanie's art gallery lost 3 major sponsors within a week. Several prominent clients canceled their contracts. The Seattle art community, which had embraced her as a talented curator and devoted mother, began to see her as something much darker. But the most satisfying moment came when Danny called him, her voice shaky with tears and rage. "Dad, I found some papers in Mom's room. Legal documents with my name on them, but I never signed anything." Danny's voice cracked. "She used my name to buy that condo, didn't she? Without telling me?" "Yes, sweetheart, she did. I feel so stupid. She's been asking me all these questions about you, trying to get me to say you were mean or scary. I thought she was just worried, but she was building a case, wasn't she?" "I'm afraid so." There was a long pause before Danny spoke again, her voice stronger now, more determined. "I want to live with you, Dad. I don't care what the court papers say. I want to live with you, and I want to testify about what Mom did." Noah closed his eyes and felt something that had been broken inside him begin to heal. "Are you sure? This is going to get ugly, Danny. They'll say terrible things about me." "Let them. I know who you really are." Danny's voice carried a strength that reminded Noah of his own mother, who had never backed down from a fight in her life. "Besides, I'm not the same person I was a month ago either. You're not the only one who's been learning new skills." That evening, Noah stood on the balcony of his temporary apartment and looked out at the city lights reflecting off Elliott Bay. Somewhere out there, his enemies were discovering what it felt like to have their lives systematically dismantled by someone who understood both their weaknesses and the law. The old Noah would have felt guilty about the destruction he was causing. The new Noah felt only satisfaction and a growing hunger for more. They had awakened something dangerous in him, something that understood that mercy was just another word for weakness. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. This has gone far enough. M." Noah smiled and deleted the message without responding. It was far too late for negotiations. The war was just beginning. The grand ballroom of the Fairmont Olympic Hotel glittered like a jewelry box, crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light across 500 of Seattle's most influential citizens. The annual Children's Hospital fundraising gala was the social event of the season, where tech moguls wrote 7-figure checks and politicians made speeches about compassion while calculating the electoral benefits of their charitable donations. Noah adjusted his tuxedo cufflinks and surveyed the crowd with carnivory satisfaction. He'd chosen this venue carefully, public enough to prevent violence, prestigious enough to maximize humiliation, and filled with exactly the audience who needed to witness Simon Harold's final destruction. "You clean up nice for a man planning to commit social homicide," Rebecca observed, appearing at his elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. She wore a black evening gown that made her look like an elegant weapon, which was exactly what she was. "It's not homicide if they built their own gallows." Noah accepted the champagne but didn't drink. He needed to stay sharp for what was coming. "Are we ready?" "Everything's in place. The live stream is set up, the reporters have been briefed, and the technical crew knows their cues." Rebecca's smile was razor sharp. Simon Harold picked the wrong architect to steal from. Across the ballroom, Noah spotted his targets. Simon looked nervous, constantly checking his phone and scanning the crowd as if expecting attack from any direction. Melanie stood beside him in a red dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, playing the role of wronged wife seeking comfort from her husband's business partner. The irony was that she actually was wronged now, just not by Noah. "Ladies and gentlemen," the event host announced from the stage, "we have a special presentation tonight from one of Seattle's most prominent architectural firms." Noah walked toward the stage with measured steps, aware that every conversation in the ballroom was gradually dying as people noticed his presence. The restraining order had been lifted 2 days ago after Rebecca proved it was obtained through fraudulent statements, but this was Noah's first public appearance since the scandal broke. "Thank you," Noah said into the microphone, his voice carrying clearly through the sound system. "I'm here tonight to talk about foundations, the importance of building on solid ground rather than shifting sand." In the audience, Simon's face had gone pale. He started moving toward the exit, but the crowd was too thick, and besides, running would only make him look guilty. 6 months ago, I discovered that my business partner and my wife had been systematically stealing from my company, forging legal documents, and planning to have me declared mentally incompetent so they could seize control of everything I'd built. Noah's voice remained conversational, almost casual, which made the words more devastating than shouting would have been. A murmur ran through the crowd. Phones came out, Camera flashes began popping. Social media posts started spreading in real time. I have audio recordings of them planning my destruction. I have financial documents showing how they moved millions of dollars through shell companies. I have video evidence of their affair conducted in my own home, in my own bed. Noah paused, letting the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. But tonight, I want to share something even more damning. Ladies and gentlemen, I present Simon Harold in his own words. The massive screens flanking the stage flickered to life. Simon's voice filled the ballroom, crystal clear through the premium sound system. The beautiful thing is that Noah will never see it coming. He's so buried in his blueprints that we could steal his company right out from under him. Melanie's recorded laughter followed. By the time he realizes what's happening, we'll be living in Cabo, and he'll be in a psychiatric facility. The ballroom erupted. Gasps, shouted questions, the frantic clicking of phone cameras. On screen, more recordings played, Simon mocking Noah's pathetic trust, Melanie discussing how to manipulate their daughter's testimony, both of them celebrating the success of their year-long deception. Simon pushed through the crowd toward the stage, his face twisted with rage and desperation. This is illegal. Those recordings were made without our consent. Actually, Noah replied calmly, Washington is a one-party consent state. I only needed my own permission to record conversations I was part of. And since you were both in my office, my car, and my home when these were made, you son of a witch. Simon reached the stage and lunged toward the microphone. Noah had been hoping for exactly this reaction. He stepped aside, letting Simon's momentum carry him past, then grabbed the back of Simon's tuxedo jacket and used his own weight against him. Simon crashed into the podium with a sound that echoed through the ballroom's sound system. Security! Someone shouted. But Noah wasn't finished. He pulled Simon to his feet and spoke directly into his face, knowing the microphone would pick up every word. You want to know what the difference is between you and me, Simon? I build things that last. You just steal what other people create. Simon swung wildly, connecting with Noah's jaw in a blow that sent stars exploding across his vision. But months of Krav Maga training had taught Noah how to absorb punishment and keep fighting. He drove his elbow into Simon's solar plexus, doubling him over, then brought his knee up to meet Simon's descending face. The crack of cartilage breaking was audible through the microphone. Simon collapsed, crimson red streaming from his nose, and the crowd surged forward like sharks drawn to blood in the water. Camera phones captured every angle as Seattle's elite watched one of their own destroy himself in real time. That's enough. Rebecca's voice cut through the chaos as hotel security finally reached the stage. Mr. Grant, we should go. But Noah wasn't ready to leave. He had one more card to play. Before I go, he said into the microphone, his voice carrying over the crowd noise, I have an announcement. The Seattle Police Department will be issuing arrest warrants tomorrow morning for Simon Harold and Melanie Grant on charges of conspiracy, wire fraud, identity theft, and racketeering. The evidence has been turned over to federal prosecutors as well. The crowd noise reached a crescendo. Simon tried to get to his feet but stumbled, his legs unsteady. Security officers moved to restrain him, but he wasn't going anywhere. The fight had gone out of him completely. Melanie had disappeared during the confrontation, but Noah wasn't worried. There was nowhere for her to run that his surveillance network couldn't find her. As security escorted Noah from the ballroom, he could hear the crowd behind him buzzing with excitement and speculation. By morning, the video would have millions of views. By afternoon, it would be national news. Simon Harold's career was over, his reputation destroyed, his freedom in jeopardy. But the most satisfying moment came as Noah reached the hotel lobby. His phone buzzed with a text from Danny. Dad, I just saw the live stream. I'm so proud of you for fighting back. When can I come home? Rebecca appeared beside him, grinning like a hunter after a successful hunt. The police are at Melanie's gallery right now. They found her trying to shred financial documents. And Simon? Arrested on stage. The hotel security footage will make excellent evidence for the attack charges. Rebecca's grin widened. I have to say, Noah, for someone who claims to have no experience with warfare, you certainly know how to destroy your enemies. Noah looked back toward the ballroom, where the crowd was still buzzing with excitement over the most dramatic social event Seattle had seen in decades. Architecture is about understanding structural weaknesses. Once you know where the cracks are, bringing down the whole building is just a matter of applying pressure in the right places. His phone rang. The caller ID showed Danny's number. Dad, are you okay? The video looks scary. I'm fine, sweetheart. Better than fine, actually. Mom tried to call me, but I didn't answer. She left a voicemail saying you'd gone crazy and attacked an innocent man. Danny's voice carried a maturity that hadn't been there 6 months ago. But I watched the whole thing. Simon attacked you first. What did you tell her? Nothing. I blocked her number. There was a pause. Dad, when this is all over, can we go somewhere far away? Just the two of us? I want to forget all of this ever happened. Noah closed his eyes and felt the last pieces of his old life finally crumble away. The man who had trusted his wife and business partner was gone forever, replaced by someone harder, more dangerous, but also more protective of the people who truly mattered. Anywhere you want to go, sweetheart. We'll build a new life together. Good, because I never want to see either of them again. Neither did Noah. But first, he had one final confrontation to arrange. The Boeing field hangar stretched into shadows like a cathedral built for machines instead of prayer, its vast space dominated by the silhouettes of corporate jets and maintenance equipment. Rain drummed against the metal roof with the persistence of accusation, each drop a reminder that Seattle's weather was as unforgiving as its justice system. Noah stood near the entrance, water dripping from his leather jacket onto the concrete floor. He'd received the anonymous text 3 hours ago. Hangar 47, Boeing Field, midnight. Come alone or Danny gets hurt. But Noah hadn't come alone. Detective Sarah Royston crouched behind a maintenance cart 30 feet away, her service weapon drawn and ready. 2 more officers were positioned near the rear exits. Rebecca waited in an unmarked car outside with a direct line to federal agents who were very interested in arresting Melanie Grant before she could flee the country. The sound of footsteps echoed through the hangar like bangs. Melanie emerged from behind a Cessna citation, no longer the elegant art curator who had once graced Seattle's social pages. Her hair was disheveled, her expensive dress wrinkled and stained. More importantly, her eyes held the desperate gleam of someone who had run out of options and was now operating on pure survival instinct. Hello, Noah. Her voice carried across the empty space with bitter familiarity. Thank you for coming. Where's Danny? Safe. For now. Melanie stepped closer, and Noah could see the tool in her right hand, held low but ready. Did you really think I'd make this easy for you? I thought you'd already run. The Cayman Islands account, the fake passport, very thorough preparation for someone who claimed to love me. Melanie's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. Love? Noah, I haven't loved you in years. Maybe I never did. You were just convenient, a stable provider while I figured out what I really wanted. And what you really wanted was Simon Harold and half of everything I built. I wanted freedom, from your suffocating devotion, from your endless projects, from pretending to be satisfied with the life you designed for us. Melanie raised the tool slightly. You never asked what I wanted, Noah. You just assumed I'd be grateful for the perfect house and the perfect marriage and the perfect life. Noah kept his hands visible and his voice calm. So you decided to destroy me instead of just leaving. Leaving wouldn't have given me what I deserved. 15 years of playing the supportive wife. 15 years of smiling at your boring colleagues and pretending to care about your architectural awards. Melanie's voice rose with each word. I earned half of everything you built, but I knew you'd fight me in court. This way was cleaner. Until I figured it out. Until you became someone I didn't recognize. Melanie studied his face with the intensity of someone seeing a stranger. The old Noah would have just accepted defeat. He would have signed the papers and moved on with quiet dignity. The old Noah trusted the wrong people. Behind the maintenance cart, Detective Royston shifted positions slightly, ready to move if Melanie raised the tool any higher. But Noah held up his hand in a subtle gesture. Not yet. Where's Simon now? Noah asked. In a federal holding cell, thanks to you. They're saying he might get 20 years. Melanie's expression hardened. He broke under questioning in less than 6 hours. Told them everything. Tried to blame it all on me. And you're surprised by that? I'm surprised by how weak he turned out to be. I thought he was stronger, more ruthless, like you've become. Melanie took another step closer. I have to admit, Noah, this new version of you is almost attractive. If you'd shown this kind of backbone during our marriage, things might have been different. If I'd shown this kind of backbone, I would have seen through your lies years ago. The hangar fell silent except for the rain and the distant sound of aircraft engines. Melanie stood 15 feet away, close enough that Noah could see the tears mixing with rage in her eyes. I'm not going to prison, she said finally. I won't survive in a place like that. Then you should have thought about the consequences before you committed federal crimes. Should have, would have, could have. Melanie raised the tool until it pointed at Noah's chest. I want you to know that I did love you once. In the beginning, when you were just a hungry young architect with big dreams and bigger ambitions. But success changed you, made you boring, safe. Success didn't change me, Melanie. It revealed who I really was, just like failure revealed who you really are. Maybe, but it doesn't matter now. Melanie's finger moved toward the trigger. Goodbye, Noah. The bang echoed through the hangar like thunder, but it wasn't Melanie's tool that fired. Detective Royston's service weapon barked once, and Melanie spun sideways, her own tool clattering across the concrete floor as she clutched her shoulder. Seattle police, drop your weapon. Melanie collapsed to her knees, red liquid seeping between her fingers. Her face was pale with shock and pain, but her eyes still burned with hatred as she looked up at Noah. This isn't over, she gasped. Even if I go to prison, even if Simon talks, there are things you'll never know, secrets that will eat you alive. Noah knelt beside her, close enough to whisper, I already know all of your secrets, Melanie. The second mortgage on the gallery, the gambling debts, the blackmail payments to keep your art theft quiet. I know about the fake Picasso you sold to the Morrison Foundation and the kickbacks from the Henderson contracts. Melanie's eyes widened with genuine shock. How? Because I'm not the naive fool you married. I became someone who asks questions and demands answers. Noah stood as paramedics rushed into the hangar. I became someone who doesn't trust anyone completely, not even the people I love. Danny? Detective Royston appeared beside him. Where is she? Melanie looked up from the stretcher as EMTs worked on her shoulder. There is no Danny. She's safe at home with my mother. I just needed to get him here. Noah's phone buzzed with a text from his daughter. Dad, Grandma says Mom tried to call me, but I'm not answering. Are you okay? When are you coming home? He typed back quickly. On my way home now. Pack a bag. We're taking that vacation we talked about. As they wheeled Melanie toward the ambulance, she called out to Noah one last time. You think you've won, but you've just become everything you used to hate. Look at yourself, Noah. Look at what you've become. Noah watched the ambulance doors close and felt nothing but relief. The woman who had shared his bed for 15 years, who had borne his child and helped him build his empire, was finally out of his life forever. She's not wrong, you know, Detective Royston said quietly. You have changed. 6 months ago, you were a respected architect with a reputation for integrity. Now I am a man who protects what matters to him, Noah finished. I can live with that. As he walked toward the hangar exit, Noah's phone rang, Rebecca's name on the screen. It's done, he said before she could speak. Good. The federal prosecutors want to meet tomorrow morning. They're talking about a plea deal for your testimony against Simon. No deals. I want him to serve every day of his sentence. Noah, no deals, Rebecca. Some things are worth more than convenience. Outside the hangar, the rain had stopped, and Seattle's skyline glittered in the distance like a promise of better things to come. Noah climbed into his car and drove toward home, toward his daughter, toward a future that would be built on truth instead of lies. The war was over. He had won everything that mattered and lost everything that didn't. It was enough. 2 years later, Noah stood on the deck of his new home in the San Juan Islands, watching Danny cast her fishing line into the morning calm of Puget Sound. The house was smaller than their old Seattle mansion, built of weathered cedar and local stone, designed to blend with the landscape rather than dominate it. It was a different kind of architecture, humble, honest, built for living rather than impressing. Any luck? He called to his daughter, now 16 and transformed by island life from an anxious teenager into someone confident and grounded. 3 rockfish and a small salmon, Danny replied, not taking her eyes off the water. Not bad for before breakfast. Noah smiled and returned to the letter he'd been reading. It was from Rebecca, updating him on the final legal proceedings. Simon Harold had been sentenced to 18 years in federal prison and would serve at least 12 before being eligible for parole. The judge had been particularly harsh about the identity theft charges involving Danny, calling it a particularly heinous violation of a child's trust. Melanie had received a 12-year sentence after a plea deal that required her to forfeit all claims to Noah's assets and surrender her parental rights. She would be 50 when she got out, if she served her full term. Her lawyer had tried to arrange supervised visitation with Danny, but Danny herself had testified that she wanted no contact with her mother ever again. The damage to our relationship is irreparable, Danny had told the family court judge with a maturity that broke Noah's heart. She used me as a weapon against my father, forged my signature on legal documents, and tried to manipulate me into giving false testimony. I don't feel safe around her. The judge had granted Danny's request for complete severance of the mother-daughter relationship. Melanie had cried during the ruling, but Noah felt nothing but relief. "Dad," Danny's voice interrupted his thoughts. "You've got that look again?" "What look?" "The one you get when you're thinking about Mom and Simon." Danny reeled in her line and walked toward him, her fishing gear draped over her shoulder. "You know they can't hurt us anymore, right?" "I know. Sometimes the mind takes longer to catch up with reality." Danny sat beside him on the deck chair, no longer the child who had been caught in the crossfire of her parents' war. Island life had been good for both of them. Days spent hiking, fishing, and working with their hands instead of drowning in the poisonous atmosphere of Seattle's high-stakes professional world. "Rebecca's letter?" Danny asked, nodding toward the papers in Noah's lap. "Final sentencing updates. It's really over now." "Good." Danny was quiet for a moment, watching a family of otters play in the kelp beds offshore. "Do you ever regret what you did to them?" Noah considered the question carefully. The old Noah, the trusting architect who had believed in the goodness of people, might have felt guilty about the systematic destruction of his wife and business partner. But that man was gone, replaced by someone who understood that mercy was often just another word for weakness. "No," he said finally. "They made their choices, and they faced the consequences. That's not cruelty. That's justice. Even the public humiliation? The way you destroyed their reputations before sending them to prison? Especially that. Their reputations were built on lies. I just revealed the truth underneath." Noah folded the letter and set it aside. "They would have done worse to me if I hadn't fought back." Danny nodded, satisfied with his answer. At 16, she understood the world in ways that many adults never would. The betrayal had aged her, but it had also made her stronger, more discerning about the people she chose to trust. "I got into Stanford," she said suddenly. Noah's attention snapped back to his daughter. "What? When? How?" "Early admission. The letter came yesterday while you were in town." Danny grinned at his shocked expression. "I wanted to tell you in person rather than over the phone." "Stanford. Jesus, Danny, that's incredible." Noah pulled her into a hug, feeling pride and terror in equal measure. "What do you want to study?" "Architecture, like my dad." "Are you sure? It's a demanding field, and after everything we've been through—" "Because of everything we've been through." Danny's voice carried absolute conviction. "You showed me that buildings aren't just about steel and concrete. They're about creating spaces where people can be safe, where families can grow, where truth can exist without fear." Noah felt tears threatening for the first time in months. "You don't have to follow in my footsteps. You can be anything you want." "I want to be like you. The new you, not the old one." Danny stood and gathered her fishing gear. "I want to build things that matter and have the strength to protect them when people try to tear them down." That afternoon, Noah burned the last physical remnants of his old life. Wedding photos, business documents, architectural awards, everything that connected him to the man he used to be, went into the fire pit behind their house. Danny helped him feed the flames, both of them watching 15 years of memories turn to ash and smoke. "Any regrets?" Danny asked as the last photo curled and blackened. "Only one." Noah poked at the ashes with a stick, ensuring complete destruction. "I regret that it took me so long to see who they really were. But if you'd seen it earlier, you might not have learned who you really are." Noah looked at his daughter with amazement. When had she become so wise? As evening fell, they sat on the deck and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The silence between them was comfortable, the kind that only existed between people who had survived something terrible together and emerged stronger for it. Noah's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, his old paranoia spiked. Could it be Melanie calling from prison? Simon making threats through a smuggled phone? But when he opened the message, it was something else entirely. "Mr. Grant, my name is David Chen, and I represent a consortium of investors interested in your architectural services. We've been following your story and are impressed by your integrity under pressure. Would you be interested in discussing a major project in Vancouver? The pay is excellent, and we believe your particular talents would be perfect for what we have in mind." Noah stared at the message for a long moment, then showed it to Danny. "This sounds like an opportunity," she said. "Sounds like the beginning of something new." Are you interested? Noah considered the question. 2 years ago, he would have been terrified of new clients, new projects, new opportunities for betrayal and loss. But the man he had become understood something the old Noah never had, that hiding from life wasn't living, it was just a slower form of dying. Maybe. What do you think? I think you're Noah Grant, and you're the best architect in the Pacific Northwest, Danny said with absolute confidence. I think you build things that last, and you have the strength to protect what you create. And I think you're going to Stanford to study architecture so you can carry on the family tradition. Damn right I am. As Noah typed his response to the mysterious David Chen, accepting the meeting and the possibility of a new beginning, he heard a sound that made him look up sharply. A car was coming up the gravel driveway, moving fast and throwing up dust clouds in the fading light. For a moment, the old paranoia returned. But then he recognized the vehicle, Rebecca's BMW, and relaxed. She emerged from the car carrying a bottle of champagne and wearing a grin that could have powered the Seattle city grid. I have news, she announced. Big news. Good news or bad news? Danny asked. The best news. Simon Harold's appeals have been exhausted. He's officially going to serve his full sentence with no possibility of early release. Rebecca held up the champagne. And Melanie's attempt to overturn the custody ruling was denied by the state Supreme Court. She has no legal relationship to Danny anymore. Noah felt the last knot of tension in his chest finally loosen. It's really over. It's really over. Rebecca popped the champagne cork, sending it arcing out over the water. Justice has been served, the bad guys are in prison, and you two get to live happily ever after. As they toasted their victory and watched the stars emerge over Puget Sound, Noah's phone buzzed with one final message. This one was from a number he recognized, the federal prison where Simon was serving his sentence. The message was short. Round 2. You ready, architect? Noah showed the message to Rebecca and Danny, expecting alarm or fear. Instead, both of them started laughing. Does he think this is a movie? Danny asked. He's in federal prison for the next 12 years minimum. What's he going to do? File a strongly worded legal brief? Some people never learn, Rebecca added. They think intimidation works even when they have no power left. Noah deleted the message without responding and blocked the number. Simon Harold was a ghost from a life that no longer existed, a shadow with no substance, a threat with no teeth. The new Noah Grant, architect, father, survivor, had better things to do than waste time on the fantasies of defeated enemies. He had a daughter to raise, a business to rebuild, and a future to construct on the solid foundation of truth, strength, and justice. The war was over. He had won everything that mattered, and he was ready for whatever came next.